Can you pixelate our faces at the end of that?
Okay, great. Well, thanks a lot for coming again today on this introductory course being run at the Equatorial Society in Senegal. And this will be my penultimate day here. I think tomorrow I'll return back to my permaculture project in Spain, which I'm really looking forward to. So it's a nice way to go out and to a little bit of an icing on the cake for me in terms of my experience with Gambia. And obviously I do want to come back, and I will try to come back and run some more courses. We had a very good day yesterday, so what I wanted to ask you is, if we went round in just a small arc, what's one thing from yesterday which you've learned, or one thing from yesterday that really sticks in your mind, that you could say, I can take that away with me and use it again, or I can treasure that moment, or something like that. One thing yesterday that really changed the way you think. Do you want to start there?
Yeah. How about everything gardens? I thought was interesting and important, and a good way to think.
Yeah.
Yes, it's important for me to learn this thing. When I go back home, I see my sisters are doing garden. I try to explain, do this, that will help you to make the garden.
Was there something here though that really grabbed you? Something that you thought maybe unusual that made a difference to you?
Yeah, I see many differences because especially about the planting, and at the same time how you make manures into the boxes.
How we make what, sorry?
About
The worms.
The worms, yes,
how to make manure. That's inspired me, mostly.
Yeah, I just want to contribute some what I just explained. Because even this is my first time to experience this. Because I never knew that the art forms, they also do the same work like in agriculture and something like that. This is my first time. And really, I also have some little seedling in my home. We just thought the way yesterday we made the experiment like to plant it, and the way you apply the manual. This is the first time I see, and I think that really changed my mind. Then I know now, the moment now when I go home, then I can just do as you do yesterday.
It's interesting that
very interesting.
to actually just to bundle those corners together and to use them as climbing frames for the cucumbers. We don't know if it's going to work, but it's really no sacrifice. If the corns don't withstand the weight of the cucumbers which are growing up in, then we'll just put some canes there, you know. Yeah. That's the thing. It's no real loss to try and experiment.
So how long do that fertilizer before you plant the tree, because you put fertilizer there?
We put compost.
So how long does it gonna change to make more germination for the tree, so that the tree will be growing faster?
Well, actually, the soils here are very good. They're very rich, in my opinion. And this tree we planted is a pomegranate, and they are very, very adaptable. They grow in the shallowest of soils, and you just need to get them established, which means they can grow on low fertility. And there are many Mediterranean plants that can grow on low fertility. The very important point to understand about low fertility, or high fertility, is that what makes them effective growing mediums is that they are balanced soils. So even though something could be low fertility, if it's a balanced soil, it means it can flourish, it can produce, it can be abundant. You just need to select the right species to grow in those low fertility soils. And when you go to deserts and you go to tops of mountains where there is very little soil, or you go to Mediterranean climates where there's a lot of erosion, There are plants that will thrive in those conditions. The olive tree is an example of that. We grow olives on the farm, and it can produce a crop even without 90% of its water needs. So just to give it 10% of its water needs, it can still produce a crop. And it can live basically on rocks. We have maybe in some places the rock is exposed on the farm because the soil is so shallow. As soon as you start to dig, within 6 inches, you're hitting base rock, and you have to smash through it. If you want to, sometimes try to assist the plant to find to put its roots down much deeper, beneath the rock. But many plants, like olive, can just really grow on their own. They self-seed everywhere, and this is the basis of a permaculture system. That once you understand your environment and you make observations, you select the species which are appropriate. So this pomegranate has actually been put into a very fertile soil, and we hope it's a balanced soil, but a very fertile soil, and it should just go away. It should really, go away. Putting compost around it is just a little bit of a boost, and it's good. It's good practice. Generally, putting compost underneath most plants is just good practice. It just gives them something to work on over the next year or so. And there's different types of compost, but eventually that compost will disappear into the soil and break down. That's something we may look at later on today when we look at soil structures. Yeah? So, yeah, good practice is to put compost down. Good compost. And there's different types, but we'll explain later.
Because at home, because my mom also is a gardener, but sometimes I saw they bring this lot of, just like the cover of the things, they dig a hole like yesterday. Yeah. They just bury it. When things spoil, then after they just take it out, but it smells very bad.
Yeah. Was it cooked food?
They take it to the garden. Yeah. Just like yesterday. But I didn't ask them because I don't know.
That's an interesting technique for growing. You can dig a trench. You can put kitchen waste about 2 feet below, and then infill it with soil. Come back 4 weeks later, put your beans in. Yeah? The worms are doing, and the soil fauna, the animals in the soil, are doing most of the work for you, because what they're doing is they're eating it, they're converting it, yeah? As well as the bacteria. But in that type of composting, it really is, there's different types of composting, but in that type of composting, it really is the animals which are eating that food, and they're turning it over. And then in the process, they are giving their own manure. Like the worm bean we made yesterday, that's a very rich worm cast fertilizer, which needs to be mixed with other soils because it's just too rich. But there are different types of compost which only work with bacteria, yeah? And you need a lot of that. And basically you need to create a system, partly closed, which needs to be aerated, yeah? Because the actual bacteria live on oxygen. And if you don't have oxygen, you get a different type of bacteria. And this is called anaerobic bacteria. And we have anaerobic bacteria in our stomachs, yeah? So there are beneficial anaerobic bacteria and there are beneficial aerobic bacteria. And for this type of composting, we need aerobic. So they breathe oxygen. So you create a box, maybe about 1 meter cubed, yeah? And you fill it with layers of different materials, with different textures, layers of straw, layers of food waste, layers of leaf, yeah? And you keep going up, and you keep going up. And the reason why you put all these different layers is because it will create at the end a very superb compost. Once the bacteria start to breathe, they raise the temperature of the compost heap, and it breaks it down even further. And what it effectively does, it creates a different environment for other bacteria to live. And then they raise the temperature again even more. And then it creates another environment for other bacteria to live. So you get these different layers and different hierarchies of bacteria, which eventually a composite can reach 60, 70 degrees centigrade, which is very hot. Consider that a composite is maybe, boiling water is 100 degrees centigrade. Now, you know it because you can put your hand in some of these composites and they will burn you. They can be that hot, yeah? And all that heat is coming basically from the decomposition of material. So these bacteria, they effectively raise the temperature when they break down the organic matter. They raise the temperature and they die because they cannot live in that temperature. And a new bacteria comes and continues the process. So there's 3 or 4 very, very, very important bacteria and fungus, yeah, which live in composites. Yeah. And that's called hot composting. That's your quickest type of composting, which is maybe 4 to 6 weeks. In 4 to 6 weeks, all of that 1 cubic meter of compost can break down into superb material. And then you get like cold composting, which is what most people do, which is basically they do a little bit of gardening and then they throw another lot on. Do a little bit of gardening and throw another lot on there. And so they're continually adding to a compost heap. But really, good composting requires that you turn the heat. And you do it, you make it in one go, you turn it. And when you turn it, you put the stuff on the side which hasn't decomposed into the middle. Yeah? So that those bacteria which were breaking down the first layer can actually work on the material which hasn't been touched yet. Yeah? So that's a different type of composting, hot cold composting. It's a combination. There will be some worms in there as well. You know. And those worms, yeah, they can't live in a hot composting system. You know. So everyone has their environment and they work best in. Choose the correct species and the correct methods and you can make various types of compost for the garden. Various levels of fertility. Yeah.
So what about poultry compost? Is it good?
It's very good. It's very good. It's very strong. I've got a handout, and probably the best compost you can make is vegetable-based compost. It's always more balanced. When you find maybe poultry and various other types of manure, like cow or horse, yeah, there's mushroom compost, there's all different types of composts. Is that they can be used specifically in particular types of planting schemes, you know. And you can, if the compost is only partly decomposed, it means you can use it in another way. And you can almost use it as a mulch, put it on the top, and allow it the animals that are living on the top of the soil to break it down for you. Poultry is very, very. I had one experience of cleaning out a chicken coop, and it had poultry manure like this in the bottom, and literally you had to get a shovel in there, and it was rock solid. I had to like scrape it off the bottom, and it came out in huge chunks. I can provide you some statistics on the level of nitrogen, potassium and phosphorus, which are the main components of a fertilizer. Yeah, so you can get a good idea of what maybe chicken compost is actually good for. But the thing to remember, chicken compost is not manure. Yeah, manure is the shit from animals or even from plants. We have something called green manure, which is decomposed plant matter, yeah, or decomposing plant matter. And compost, which is the process in which that shit or those plants are breaking down and forming another type of substance. Yeah. So you have to be careful. You can't put pure shit onto plants. You can't put, or onto into areas where you want to plant into. Yeah, it needs to break down to a certain degree. Anyway, we'll come back to that. I'm going to carry on. What do you remember from yesterday?
People care.
People care. Oh, good. I'm glad you mentioned that, actually, the ethics, yeah? So how does that, could you relate that to anything in your life?
Mm-hmm.
Could you relate it to anything in your life?
Could I relate it?
Relate it, yeah. When you say people care, is it something that's special for you, like in terms of like how you see yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. People
Maybe-
have to care for people though. That's why I say, yesterday I learned many things here. So I like most of this, like this man said, everything guided. Because people care also inspire.
Okay. Thanks. Yeah, what about you?
Yesterday, I learned a lot, and what really catch my eye yesterday was recycling of nutrients and resources and energy too. Because I learned that there's nothing to be waste. Everything within the garden, after you use it or after you harvest, you can use it for any other thing. That, I learned that, and that really, really touched me yesterday. Because I thought before that any, like the raw material or after the straw or harvest that you use, you can just throw it away or you give it to the animals to eat. But I learned that you can also bring it back and use it as mulch. Or, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we're going to look at mulch a bit more later. And actually, I've got some bags of fertilizer out there. So when we do a planting, maybe we'll do a planting and mulch afterwards. That would be nice before we leave here. About you,
Yeah, well, I will say the ethics of permaculture, because it reminds me also, it enlightened me in how permaculture is really related to ecotourism activities. Because before I was just using the concept that permaculture, since it is also driving towards by promoting sustainable development, there is the only connection that it has with ecotourism. But through looking at the art care and people care and also fair shares, which are also part of the ethics of ecotourism, I would say it's really inspired me and made me really very interested in permaculture. So yeah.
Okay, great.
So.
Kelly?
Yeah, I wrote a sentence down which you said was not to me like a new, but it was like a confirmation that, which is sometimes harsh on people, but what I'm trying to create in my own project. And you said, you said, I am not literally quoting you, but if your environment is permaculture designed, the inhabitants naturally want to take care of it. And you were talking about this as a guest house, that we can do a little bit more planting, that you actually have to make your environment so inviting naturally that you will not litter it, you will not maltreat it, but you say, okay, let me just do this and let me make it more. And that I thought, exactly that is what I try to get within the team as well, that being responsible of yourself in the betterment of your environment. And
Exactly. I think that's what needs to be a true permaculturist, because we have to understand self-responsibility. And the problem as well is that people say, that's not, I won't do that, that's not my job. No. But really, to be a permaculturist means to actually learn to do that. Teach yourself again, change of behaviour and a change of attitude. So if I break something, I will fix it. And I may learn a new skill doing that. And I pulled up a couple of people here on a few things, without calling names, but someone had an accident with a wall, and half the wall came down. Well, not half of it, but a section of the wall came down. And I waited to see if he cleaned it up, and without saying names, pushing it around, cleaning it up. And I waited, and I thought, there's rocks all over the place, and there's dust everywhere, and I wonder if he's going to get the broom and finish up. And I was waiting, and it was getting dark, and you'd all gone home by then. And there he was, just sitting down. And I got the bread out, put some peanut butter on it, and I said, by the way, we've got a course running tomorrow, and that's a trip hazard. I don't want my students, tripping over.
You asked me who is going to clean that place. I told you the file book. Bring it down and clean it.
And he replied, I'll do it tomorrow. I said, well, no, students are coming in the morning, but you can't leave all those rocks hanging around, you know. And then 10 minutes later, he was out there cleaning it up, and I thought, great. So there we are. I went out with my peanut butter sandwich, and I said, "Do you want a sandwich?" Here we go.
I think that is also part of being responsible, knowing what you are really yearning for. Like I would say that person was not really ecotourism oriented.
Yeah.
Yeah. Had it been it was somebody who learned ecotourism and sustainable development will also take that responsibility to do that. But that's why I'm really excited about this course, because it makes me know more about I will not say like permaculture is gardening. I would say it is part of ecotourism. To be honest, yeah.
Well, part of the concept of permaculture is ownership, but not ownership of capital, but ownership of a project. So when you actually get involved and you interact, which is what's really good, and like yesterday, I hope that some of you come back and look at the worm beans to see how it's progressing, or make your own. Or the chicken coop, there's 3 or 4 of us working at that one stage. And people there who I could see were not used to using hammers and nails, and we're having a go, just banging it in, and it's worked. It's good enough for now, In that situation, you don't criticise someone, you actually applaud them for having a go. And it is really about breaking that attitudinal barrier, or that blockage that will stop you from being responsible, for something. And there's certainly, if you're part of a permaculture, it's like a mature system. At the highest level, when it's at its climax, it's cooperative. It's like a natural system in nature. It's symbiotic. Everyone's working together. Yeah. In the early stages of it, it's all about learning. So you're going to get confrontation. You're going to get competition. Yeah. But that's all part of the learning process, and you learn to cooperate. And that's a very good imitation of nature. We can call it an imitation, but really it's nature inherent in all of us. Learning to work together cooperatively. Okay, so one of the exercises I thought we could do today is actually walk around the garden, the whole complex, for like 10 minutes. 10 minutes, yeah? And just look and observe. See if you can notice anything that's really interesting. But what I want you to keep an eye out for are patterns. Because one of the fundamental things about permaculture also is to know that there are patterns in nature. And these patterns we try to replicate into human ecologies or human systems. So look around the garden for 10 minutes, maybe take a notepad and a pen, and just record patterns that you may see. On any level, sensual, mental, emotional, intuitive, any level that you can actually see or feel. And then we'll come back and then we'll just maybe chart some of those patterns, and then we'll try to start joining up the dots to see how we can create a permaculture system. Yeah? So can we do that for I'll give you 10-15 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah? I'm going to make a phone call in the meantime because I need to ensure that we're going to the right place this afternoon. So you in groups of 2 or 3, but stick to the groups, yeah? Choose a partner, or go alone if you want to, yeah? And you can walk around anywhere, inside, outside.
No, we can go together. I just have to call my cook. Yeah.
I'll be here. Yeah, I'll be here. Any types of patterns, yeah? Whatever you might think a pattern is. Any types of patterns.